What makes a great man? Is it a question of strength, power, and protection? Is it the ability to provide for one's family? Could it be the prestige one holds and their impact on those closest to them? Or is it someone who simply finds their joy in the joy of others? My grandfather was one of those great men who was able to find their joy in others. I knew him as Grandpa Bob, and in the absence of my father, he provided a shining example of how to behave as a man for my brother and I. Never one to make a fuss or delve too deeply into personal issues. It could be sometimes hard for people to read my grandfather unless you truly knew him. Those close to him knew all too well. Kind-hearted, generous, and witty man, was always ready to offer some brief, brilliant words of guidance, or just bust some chops, as my grandmother would have put it. Grandpa Bob was always in a good mood. When I knew him, he had just retired from the railroad, and every day was a Saturday, as he would say. Bob was always ready to take the reins and make sure that whatever my grandmother, his daughters, or his grandchildren wanted to do, they would get to do. From chauffeuring his grandkids to and from school, baseball games, bowling alleys, golf courses, music lessons, playdates, Bob would never complain he had to do these things. He enjoyed doing these things. From trips to Branson, Missouri, to South Dakota, to craft shows, book signings, concerts, the state fair, Bob never wanted to go any of these places. The only occasional outing he would make for himself would be to an antique shop to buy some old knives, railroad lanterns, or tobacco tins. Other than that, my grandfather wished nothing more than to put a smile on my grandmother's face every single day. Bob and Judy loved their children and grandchildren, and they both wanted nothing more than to see them enjoy their lives and to help in any way they could. Their marriage was the only real-life example I got to see of two people choosing to be together and staying together for better or for worse. There would be disagreements and frustrations from time to time, but they never let that brief emotion get in the way of the union that they had built. A 50-year marriage these days is almost as scarce as the pension my grandfather used to retire from the railroad. And indeed, my grandfather's work as a telegrapher with the railway may have greatly improved his chances, or just proved his determination. Bob would work 3 or 4 hours away sometimes longer, stationed all across the Midwest, 5 days a week. Yet he would always drive home every weekend to be with his family, and then drive right back Sunday night. Maybe this made my grandmother's heart grow fonder of my grandfather during his absence, and made for a more loving relationship when they were together. There were no cell phones, no internet, no fast communication devices. I mean, my grandfather was working for the railroad using telegraphy. That's just tapping a monotone sound and interrupting the signal to define certain letters with your finger. Not too far removed from texting, but fairly antiquated technology. My grandmother raised 3 daughters and managed to become a school teacher and maintain a long-distance marriage where they probably only talked once a day for several years. It's incredible to think that such a strong bond can be maintained from such a great distance. But this was what made Bob and Judy meant for each other. When they set their minds to something, they did it. Grandpa Bob was always someone I looked up to, and he never let me down. He had a stoic resilience about him, which was complemented by a gleeful wit that was endearing to anyone who knew him. I never saw my grandfather complain, argue, deceive, or lie to anyone. Well, let's not forget a time when I was a little curious, music-loving boy who so enjoyed being picked up by my grandmother from school because she would always let me listen to the rock music that I loved. No one else in the family could stand. Music sounds so good in the car, and it's such a treat for my grandmother to give me full control over the radio dial in her car. Yet my grandfather had a slightly less acceptable tolerance to loud noise and convinced me in my youth that his car ran a little differently than my grandmother's. His car only played country music. I, of course, believed him, and I didn't fuss with the radio while in his car. Though when I asked my grandmother why my grandfather's car only plays country music, she told me right away, that's not true. Your grandfather's teasing you. That's literally the only time I can remember that my grandfather took a stand for something he wanted. I've never seen him want for anything. He was a selfless human being. There is not much that was left undone by Bob. He was a great provider and a loving husband. He had 3 daughters and 4 grandchildren whom he loved dearly. He amassed a basement full of cluttered antiques, some valuable, some not. Most of his found treasures were completely meaningless to him. They were just simply a hobby. Bob knew what made him happy, and that was making the people around him happy. Bob had no intention of living without Judy by his side, and one might say he never dared even think about it. That's how strong a bond Bob and Judy had. Once Judy passed a little over a year ago, Bob was simply tying up the loose ends, but saw no real future without his beloved wife, whom he had sought to please for the majority of his life. And now that his time on earth has come to a close, we can all take heed of the great example Bob set, and we can all strive to see how we can create a little joy of our own from finding the joy in others. Just like this great man, Grandpa Bob. Thank you.